I'm going to start today with a rare photo that I feel that since I've been retired from Jericho for over 3 years now, I can share this with everyone. Uh, it's a little known fact, and we keep it tightly confined. But at Jericho High School, all the male faculty on their 10th anniversary in the school would receive two things. We would receive a very nice black smoking jacket and a key to the private cigar lounge on the fourth floor at Jericho. And here's a photo of me uh, wearing my jacket while in the cigar lounge. Here's the photo. Now, if you believe that, uh, I have a bridge in Brooklyn. I'd be happy to sell to you. There's several things wrong with that story. One, there were no smoking jackets that were distributed on the on our 10th anniversary. Two, there is no cigar lounge at Jericho High School, and three, there is no fourth floor in Jericho High School. So I just pranked everybody who believed uh, that story. That photo, however, was part of a kind of a prank, I guess you would say. Uh, the students took my face, my head, and they photoshopped it on top of the body of the most interesting man in the world. If you remember those Secchi ads, they put my head on him and with him smoking that cigar, and they captioned it. Photo of Anthony Scarnati captured at the Obama's Christmas party 2009, which I also, just for the record, did not attend, primarily because I wasn't invited. In any event, that story appeared in an edition of the Jericho High School newspaper. Here's a picture of that edition. Now, the Jericho High School newspaper was called the Jer Echo. Clever. But on April 1st, April Fool's Day, they would come out with their spoof edition, satirical stuff and the like, and they called it the Jer Uh-oh. So there was an article focused on me in the Jer Uh-oh in 2014, I believe. Yes, in 2000, April 1st, 2014. I'm just going to read. It's a very, very short article. I'm going to read it to you so you get a sense of what the students at Jericho thought of me. It was titled Anthony Scarnati, Smartest Man in the World. Okay, well, no prank yet. And it begins. Anthony Scarnati, loving father, devoted husband, thoughtful son, Lord, witty teacher, friendly friend, defender of the Constitution, recreational basket weaver, and professional bomb diffuser. The Jericho High School sociology teacher is widely known throughout the community as all of these. But what most students don't know is that Anthony Scarnati knows all. Scarnati has a planner that can accurately predict every upcoming event. When two former sociology students of his, Max Drew and Jackson Weinreb, decided to skip class and stay in the cafeteria one day, 2 minutes into the period, they saw Mr. Scarnati standing at the cafeteria door, looking at them. Scarnati reportedly said, I had written down in my book that on October 22nd, 2013, two students of mine, Jackson Weinreb and Max Drew, would cut my class. Shortly before he showed up, a carrier pigeon brought me, Drew, a note that read, "I'm coming for you." And before I knew it, Anthony was standing at the door. Weinreb stated, "We know that social forces put pressure on us as seniors to cut classes, but we will never shortchange Mr. Scarnati again." Another former sociology student of his, Alex Tolpin, relayed a tale that further emphasizes the extent of Scarnati's all-knowing powers. The day after we handed in our big research paper, uh, Tolpin said, we all walked into class and he was just standing there. He had already read and graded our papers. And he told us to look at our palms. So I looked, and out of nowhere, a number appeared on my hand. He said that the number we saw was our grade. It was the craziest thing I ever saw. Aside from being a genius, let me say that again. Aside from being a genius, Anthony Scarnati is also a seltzer enthusiast, his preferred brand being White Rock. He was once an avid vintage seltzer fan until they relocated. Scarnati explained ever since they moved to Florida, their product has been worse than that time One Direction broke up. Wait, you don't know about that yet. If this article doesn't open your eyes to the true Anthony Scarnati, we don't know what will. Long live Lord Scarnati. And so that was I thought that was a very nice piece. Uh, in any case, there are two things in there that I'm going to talk about in some detail later on, not today, at another part. One being the whole seltzer situation, and the other being how I came to be a lord, because I am in fact a lord, and I'll talk more about that at a later point. Uh, I'm now going to talk about some pranks that I was not the target of, but that I was a participant in back when I was a student at Holy Cross High School. One our a social studies teacher. He taught us sophomore history. I believe we studied. Well, I should say we studied. We were assigned to study European history in sophomore year at Holy Cross. And the brother Robert Brown, who we all called Bobo. Here's his photo. Uh, we would torment him, and should we have done it? No, I guess not. I guess not. But he was also famous for his homework assignments. His homework assignments would be, you standard. You read a few pages from the textbook and then answer these questions, that are in the book. And he would always say that your assignment has to always be 2 pages, 4 sides. 2 pages, 4 sides. That's a lot to write every night. Which when he assigned homework, he assigned it every night. 2 pages, 4 sides. So that didn't endear him to anyone. So we did a couple things. One was to call him Bobo, which drove him nuts. Whenever we would see him, like in the hallway, you would hear people saying Bobo, Bobo, and he would not like that. But the prank that we played on him was we had a bio lab before social studies sophomore year, and so at one point in bio lab we were dissecting like frogs. I think it was frogs that we were dissecting. And a couple of the guys, I didn't do this, but I was certainly in on it. But encouraging this was a wonderful idea. Let's take some of the dissected parts and let's hustle down to history class. Open up the drawer on Bobo's desk and put the parts in the desk, because he always opens up his desk drawer to take out his whatever his notes, his roll book, whatever it was. So he comes in, he opens up the drawer, there's these frog legs in there. He goes, he goes, he goes nuts. So that was pretty harmless, but it was a prank nonetheless. Uh, Another teacher at Holy Cross High School. So that Bobo prank was 1970, and I'll move now to 1971, junior year. Junior year, we took chemistry, and our chemistry teacher was a brand new teacher, Brother Flood. Here's a photo of Brother Flood. Now, Brother Flood was a nice enough guy, I guess, but we tormented this poor guy. I mean, there are certain people who really shouldn't be in a classroom, who shouldn't be a teacher. They just don't command uh, respect. They're not a kind of common a dominating figure in front of the classroom, and so they become the butt of jokes and stunts, pranks, and so forth. And he was certainly one. So one of the things that we would do in class, Brother Flood would be in the front, and he'd be writing something on the board. So he's got his back to the class, and somebody, and it could have been anybody in the room, would yell out, "Stampede!" And once we heard that, we all did the same thing. We all pretended we were stampeding cows, and we would jump up and down in our chair, our desks, and move them forward. And as we're doing, we're going moo, and the whole class is pounding their desks as they move forward while they're mooing. And Brother Flood would turn around, stop, 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 and we would all laugh, and then I guess we would ultimately back up. But again, it's a kind of a harmless thing, we thought, but it was really tormenting this poor Brother Flood. I don't know whatever became of Brother Flood. Uh, Another thing we did at Holy Cross that was kind of a unique thing. Those of you who went to Holy Cross, here's something that is very familiar to you. That was a shot of the Q76 that lots of guys, including myself, took the Q76. It ran along Hillside Avenue, then up Francis Lewis Boulevard to Holy Cross High School. And one of the things that we would do a lot of things on the 76 that we shouldn't have done. We would occasionally, it was an all boys school, and seniors sitting in the back would occasionally demand that a couple of freshmen be brought back to them, and then they would do whatever they were going to do to haze these freshmen. One of the things was that they would marry uh, two freshmen, and that was, you know, I don't know. Thankfully, I never did that. Let me be clear. Nor was I ever a freshman who was dragged to the back of the bus, so that was good. But one of the things that we would do, because the bus would be packed with guys, and so it's not just guys sitting on the bus. Guys would be standing up, and you have those bars, those rails that you hold on to as the bus is moving. And somebody would yell out, "Rock the bus!" And guys would start to rock, hold on to those rails, and this way, and then back, and then this way, and then and back, and the bus would rock as it's going down Francis Lewis Boulevard at whatever, 30, 40 miles an hour, however fast the bus was going, and we're rocking it back and forth. Uh, I can tell you that a couple of years after I graduated, I was driving down Francis Lewis Boulevard. I must have been around 3 o'clock in the afternoon or so, and there was a 76 ahead of me, and the 76 was rocking. And two things immediately came to mind. One was, oh, that's great. The guys are still doing the same thing that we used to do. And then the second thing was, I was horrified because you had a bus that's going this. It's like, oh my God, that bus could tip over. So invariably, what the bus drivers would do is they would pull over and they get on the microphone. They would yell at us. He would yell at us that you gotta stop doing that, or else we're not going anywhere. And then we would stop. They would take off, and we wouldn't do it again. So if you're ever driving down Francis Lewis Boulevard and you see this, all right, a Q76 parked along the side of Francis Lewis Boulevard in between stops, you know why. They're probably rocking that bus. So those were a couple of the kinds of pranks that we did uh, at Holy Cross. There were others, but I'm not gonna go into all of those things. One thing that high school students do, and as a teacher, I was always aware of this. I told you the story of Big Ed who put the gum on my seat. Other kids would put thumbtacks on seats. So I always looked after the Big Ed incident. I always looked at my chair until the day I retired. I looked at my chair, the seat of my chair before I sat down in it because I didn't want anything like that happening again, and it never did. But you heard stories of it. The other thing that kids like to do is in the old erasers, the chalkboard erasers, those felt erasers. There was like 3 or 4 lines of felt in the eraser. They would take chalk and stick the chalk in those in between the felt strips in the eraser, so that when you erase the board, of course, it's all chalk coming on the board. So, and I knew about that. So I always, before I erase the board, I always look at the eraser, and I did that until the day I retired. Even though I was teaching at Suffolk County Community College, I would check the eraser before I used it, and I would check my seat before I sat down. All right, so I'm going to move now to 1979, my first year at St. Mary's Boys High School in Manhasset. Uh, and it's the fall semester, so I'm brand new there, and I was told I had to cover a class for a teacher who was absent, so I would be the substitute teacher in that class for the period. Okay, I had never done that before. This was a first, but it was my first full year at St. Mary's. So St. Mary's, there were 3 classrooms in the basement floor, rooms 1, 2, and 3. And I was to cover a class in room 1. Room 1 was relatively small. It was maybe 4 rows deep and maybe 6 rows across, so you could fit about 24, maybe 25 kids in the classroom. It was one of the smaller rooms in the school. So I had to cover a class there. So I get the notice from up in the office on the first floor. I go down to the basement. I go to room 2, and there's the door has a window on it, and I'm looking in the window. The lights are off, and there's nobody in the room. Must be the wrong room. So I go back upstairs to the office. I tell the brother, assistant principal, that there's nobody in room 2, in room 1, or whatever the room was. You must have the wrong room number. So he checks, says, no, that's the room. They're down there. I said, okay. I'm thinking to myself, I'm not an idiot. There was nobody in the room. So I go back downstairs, and this time I open the door, and I walk in, and there they are, about 20 guys, sophomores, and they're up against the wall along the door. So when you looked in the window, you couldn't see them. And they were just trying not to be seen or heard. They were in absolute silence up against the up against the wall. And I was like, what are you knuckleheads doing? So you would rather stand there in silence for the whole 40 minutes rather than have a substitute come in. So I did whatever I had to do, but I'm not an idiot. I thought to myself, there's nobody in that room. Well, I was an idiot because there was about 20 guys hiding in that along the wall in that room. Uh, I'll fast forward ahead now to 1987. 1987. Now I'm at Newtown High School, This is April of 1987 at Newtown High School, and my homeroom class. I mentioned it in my very first piece that my homeroom class was recent immigrants, Asian immigrants, uh, who had very little facility with English. They really did. They were new to the country, so they were kind of an interesting group, and I had them for the whole year. So now we're into April, beginning of April, and I walk into the class, and one of the girls says to me, "Mr. Scarnati, Mr. Scarnati, Mr. Ross, who was the principal, Mr. Ross was just in here, and he's looking for you, and he's angry, and he's out in the hallway now, and he wants you to go out. You got to go out and see him, and he's really mad." I'm thinking, oh my God, what did I do? I don't know. So I go out, and there's nobody in the hallway. I'm looking around. There's nobody there. I come back in the room, and all 30 of these kids are laughing, and they're pointing at me. They're going, "April Fool, April Fool." I was like, okay, that was great. So here are my Asian immigrants, and they are assimilating effectively into American culture, and they're learning how to play pranks on their teacher on April Fool's Day. So that was I never forgot that. They were a wonderful, wonderful group of kids. All right, now I'm going to move to uh, Townsend Harris High School. Townsend Harris High School. It was a math teacher, John Brown. Here's a photo of John. That photo was in the yearbook, and the caption next to the photo said, "Is a math teacher John Brown with the ruler that he used to flog student desks." Uh, and there was an incident involving that ruler and an extortion plot designed to get Mr. Brown to cancel or postpone a scheduled exam. I'm hazy on the details, but fortunately, another teacher at Townsend Harris High School, English teacher Georgette Wallace, remembers this incident pretty plainly, and she has been gracious enough to provide us with this information. So here is my friend and former colleague from Townsend Harris High School, Georgette Wallace.
John Brown had a penchant for slapping his yardstick on the desk, on the teacher's desk, on the board, and I guess the kids came up with a great idea. So, someone, and I don't know who it was, someone decided to kidnap the ruler. So, what they did is they sent a ransom note in the typical cutout letters saying that they had the ruler, the yardstick, actually. So I think he ignored it. I think he wasn't giving them the satisfaction. And then, this is the best part, he gets an envelope filled with sawdust. How perfect. We were hysterical. So I think he ignored that too. You'll have to get him to respond. But then I looked up. I was teaching, I think on the first, this is all in the old building. I think I was teaching on the first floor, and I look out the window, and what do I see? I see John Brown's yardstick dangling from a cord, probably the shade cord. I don't know. We were hysterical. So that's one example of a prank. This next is not really a prank, but is just to show you how creative our students are. There was one class where I said that peas have feet. So, of course, the students looked at me like I was crazy. It was a look I was used to getting. And I explained how you plate your food, you have your potatoes, you have your peas, you have your meat or fish, and then you turn around, and then suddenly the peas are in the mashed potatoes. So that is clearly proof that peas have feet. Well, one of the students, I don't remember who it was, Alan Fu comes to mind. Maybe it was him. He cooked an entire dinner and then put fishing wire through the peas and then made a video of the whole thing of the peas with feet marching into the mashed potatoes. And then we showed it to the whole class. So I know you've said multiple times how wonderful our students are. This was just one example of something that was really funny. Not really a prank, but really funny. Thanks. Bye bye.
Okay. Thank you, Georgette. I can tell you that just as a follow up, that John Brown did in fact get his ruler back, and he did not give in to the ransom demand of canceling the test. All right, now finally, I want to talk about senior pranks, uh, which is not something that we did when I was in high school. At least the high school I went to, Holy Cross, we didn't really do senior pranks. I don't remember senior pranks at Dominican Commercial High School or at St. Mary's Boys High School or at Newtown or August Martin, but they came into vogue. Uh, I guess it was in the 90s, and ever since, at least in my experience. So I'm going to talk about a couple of pranks, and I put them into three categories. I should say three categories: the good, the bad, and the dumb. And you'll find pranks that fit into each of those categories. And I'm going to start with the bad. And this occurred at Townsend Harris High School in June of 2000. Kid by the name of Kenny, I forget his last name, uh, released a chicken, a live chicken, in the hallway at the end of a period, just as a period was ending. So he releases the chicken. He was at one end of the hallway. I was at the far end of the hallway, and the corridors were very long. This was in the new building at Townsend Harris, and so I see Kenny bent over, and I see him. He has a chicken, and he lets it go. And at the moment he lets it go, the doors fly open. All the kids start coming out. Change of period. So that there are going to be hundreds and hundreds of kids in that hallway with this chicken. You can imagine. Kids are screaming. The poor chicken must have been frightened to no end, running around. I guess I couldn't see it because there was hundreds of kids between me and the chicken. So later that day, I go see Wanda Nix, and I say, Wanda, I know who released the chicken, and she was very grateful that I got. And I told her who it was, and that I actually saw him do it. So it's nothing secondhand. This is primary source. He was ultimately suspended. He had a hearing. His mother was there. I came down. I had to tell him what I saw and so forth. And it was just, you know, it was just a bad thing to do. It was bad for the kids. It was bad for the chicken. It wasn't, in my view, wasn't funny at all. It was just not good. Uh, a dumb thing was done by students. I believe this was at Jericho. I'm not certain, but I'm pretty sure it was Jericho. They let loose hundreds, I don't know how they got them, hundreds of grasshoppers in the cafeteria. Ha ha, this is funny. This is just dumb. So you got grasshoppers everywhere. Kids are annoyed. I mean, it made a mess. Ultimately squished grasshoppers all over the all over the cafeteria floor. So to me, the first one was just bad to do to a chicken, and then the second was just dumb with the grasshoppers, in my view. But then again, these are kids, and these are things I guess they think are funny. Now in the good category, there are a number of examples, and I'm going to give you three examples that I put in the good category. Everybody might not put these in the good category, but I put these in the good category. The first goes back to 1995. Fairly certain that was the year. Uh, at Townsend Harris High School, the original building. I shouldn't. This is the Townsend Harris High School goes back to the 1850s, I believe, 1840s or 1850s. Founded as a high school that would be on the campus of City College. And then I think around the Great Depression, they ended it, and then it was reestablished in I think it was the mid 1980s. I'm not exactly sure the date. So it was reestablished to be part of Queens College, but the original building, again, of the reestablished Townsend Harris, was a little building on Parsons Boulevard, I guess about a mile south of Queens College. And a new building had been planned to be built on the campus at Queens College. And so in the 94-95 school year, the new building was supposed to open. I think I have the dates right. The new building was supposed to open. And we had been anticipating, the move to the new building that pretty much that whole school year. Things were being packed up by the late in that first semester or early in the second semester. Things were being packed up. We were ready to go, and there was delay after delay after delay. And Dr. Logman, the principal, would kind of preach patience. It's going to happen. We just going to take time. He would say that sometimes when life gives you lemons, you need to turn those into lemonade. Nice, nice idea. So we finally make the move in the spring of 95. I forget exactly what month it was, but it was springtime. It was nice weather. And the plan was that we would move the kids physically from the old building to the new building with a march up 150th Street. I'm pretty sure that was the street, 150th Street, and we'd march about a mile to the new building. So you're going to have 1,000 kids marching up 150th Street. Of course, the police were involved, closing off side streets and so forth, so we could have this. I called it a march. You might call it a parade. I don't know what you want to call it, but a march. I was a social studies teacher, so Townsend Harris, you always had to try to take whatever's going on and relate it to whatever it is you were teaching. So I related it to Mao Zedong's Long March in the Chinese Civil War, when he was being routed by the nationalist forces, and he marches his forces up into the mountains in order to avoid the route. They called it the Long March. So I said this is our Long March up to up to this new building. So in June of that year, a senior prank, they buy, I don't know how many lemons, a whole bunch of lemons, and they dump them right outside Dr. Logman's office, because he'd been talking about lemons. Turn them, you get lemons, turn them into lemonade. So here you go, Dr. Logman. There's plenty of lemons for your lemonade. Logman comes on the loudspeaker and says, I just noticed all the lemons outside my door. Very funny. Now, whoever did that, come down here and get rid of those lemons. So they did. No, as far as I know, no one got in any trouble for that. It was just a very funny thing where they kind of took something and they turned it into a uh, into a prank. At Jericho High School, I forget the year. Uh, I thought this was terrific. The seniors all decided that last period of the day, whatever day it was, last period, they would all go into the cafeteria and have a water balloon fight. And so they did. And they had a water balloon fight in the cafeteria. There was no lunch periods. It was the end of the day. It was just the seniors that wanted to participate, all just kind of didn't go to their last period class. They filled up water balloons and they went to the cafeteria and they had a major water balloon fight. And it was a lot of fun for the kids, and just a matter of kind of mopping up, which the custodians would do anyway at the end of the day in the cafeteria. So I thought that was a pretty funny uh, prank. Now, uh, the last prank I'll talk about is what I thought was the funniest prank that I ever saw, but a lot of people disagree with me and say it was absolutely awful. So I'll let you decide. Uh, I was waiting for an elevator along with three or four of my colleagues at Townsend Harris. We were in the basement. There's 6 floors. So I would rarely use the elevator, but this time I was down in the gym area, and I wanted to go up. I had to go up to the 6th floor for a class, so I was going to take the elevator. And I'm there, and there's 3 or 4 women older than me, uh, very nice, very nice women. They were teachers, or I think it was a combination of teachers and secretaries and so forth, but all very, very nice. They were having kind of a little pleasant banter, waiting for the elevator. Now, just take a look at this, right? As kind of a mundane thing as you're gonna see. You're waiting for an elevator, the elevator doors open up, you go onto the elevator. Uh, when those elevator doors opened up, here's what we saw. Now, I just showed you the head. There was a whole doll who was they somehow lashed it to the railings that would go around, like the handrails on a in an elevator, right in the corner, and arms open, legs spread. All she needed to do was hang out a shingle because she was open for business. So the elevator doors open up, and this is what we see. I'm ready to just bust out laughing because I thought it was so funny. But the women who were standing with me were horrified. They gasped. "Oh, this is terrible. Why would they do such a thing? This is just awful." And I'm in an awkward position. So oh yeah, this is a terrible thing. It was really funny. And the funny thing is, I can't remember what happened next. I don't know if we all got in the elevator and rode up to the 6th floor with this doll in the elevator, or if I took it down and deflated it. I have I have no recollection of that, but that I thought that was quite the funny event. That was around 97, 98. I'm ballparking it somewhere around there. Uh, so that's a little bit about pranks and so forth. Be looking at something completely different next week. Not exactly sure what it might be. I'd like to thank uh, the wonderful Georgette Wallace for providing us that memory of John Brown's yardstick extortion or kidnapping, as you might call it. In any event, have a wonderful weekend. Have a great week. You will see me next week. I'm just going to leave you with this. Okay. See you next time.